Hello everybody, and welcome to my first video on my new channel, Deep Creek Wood. Today I'm going to be making a beginner's epoxy wood sign. So as a beginner, I don't have a proper shop, so here I'm taking my equipment out of one of my sheds in my house. This one's in the back, and this is where I use my CNC machine. Today I'm going to be making one that is 8 inches long, 5.5 inches tall, and 1/4 inch thick. Here I'm using walnut that I get from Home Depot. My local Home Depot usually has some pretty nice pieces of walnut. This is their hobby board, so it's fairly reasonably priced at Home Depot. So here I'm just cutting it to length. Now I'm getting my CNC hooked up and getting the board clamped down. This CNC I got it from Amazon. The brand is SaneSmart, and it's a very inexpensive entry-level CNC. This one, I believe I got it for $200 about a year and a half ago. Now, since then, they've came out with newer models and pro versions of this, which have better motors and shields around the side to keep the dust from flying around. Now, one thing, if you have this CNC in particular, it comes with these clamps here, which I kind of don't like. I've been thinking about upgrading them. I've seen some people have made some custom ones, but one thing that you got to make sure is that you clamp your material down very well for any CNC, because you don't want your wood or whatever material flying around while it's cutting. Now here I'm just getting the bit right to the edge of the work piece so the CNC knows where the material is at, and it will be able to cut accordingly. And there it goes. It's going to cut out an image that I've created on easel from Inventables. I'm on the free version right now, which for what I'm doing, I find it suits every need I have, and I definitely recommend it. So I recently started an Etsy store, and one of my items that I have on here is this size of a sign with customized lakes on them. So here I'm just making one of Lake Tahoe. I'm actually not local to Lake Tahoe, but I know it's a very popular lake, so I'm trying to get more images up on the site so I can hopefully get some more orders. Now you can see the image looks very rough on the wood right now. It has all the little fuzzies from the CNC. Now I think that's partly due to my machine being a slower speed, but a little hit with a 100 grit sandpaper and it takes all that right off, and it actually cleans up really nice every time. I like to start by sanding the front and back after the cut's done. Just a little pass with the 100 grit. Right now I'm just getting that sticker off of there because if you peel it off, it just stays stuck on there. So sanding is a quick way to get it out. And there's the look after the sanding. I think it's a pretty nice design. Now we move on to the fun part, the epoxy. That's where all the nice colors will come into this piece. Now I have a cheap epoxy. I think it's Dr. Crafty on Amazon, and I've been having very good luck with this epoxy. It's a 1-to-1 mixed, and I've had no issues so far with it. I haven't done any large pours, and I haven't done any clear pours, but as far as the pours that I have done, it comes out very, very well, I think. Right here, I'm just getting the mixture dialed in for the 1-to-1 ratio. Now, one thing with epoxy is you need to make sure that it is mixed extremely well. If you think it's not mixed well, then you got to keep mixing, because if you don't mix it properly, it won't end up curing properly. It might not cure hard. It might stay kind of soft. So I'm mixing it with a toothpick because it's such a small amount, but I usually use a larger stick that'll make it a lot easier to stir. So now that I've stirred all the sides, the bottom really well, I've separated a small amount into this little container, and I'm putting in my pigments. This is a blue pigment from Black Diamond Pigments, which I also got off Amazon, and I recommend these pigments very, very much. They're beautiful. So this blue is going to be filling in the lake area, and I'm going with a black to fill in the letters of Lake Tahoe. But on my Etsy page that I've started, I'm offering different colors, so it's fully customizable for any clients that want to customize it to their own specifications. This is the remaining of the epoxy. I'm just adding in the black pigment. It's a dark gray pigment, but it has a lot of nice sparkle to it. Now it's time for the pour. This is usually the funnest part of making epoxy signs, is the pour. Get to see the nice pigment going into your creation. I like to try and get it close around the edges and try not to overflow it, because then that just makes it more of a pain when you're sanding it later on. Now with the toothpick, you just spread it around the area that you want to fill in, and it'll usually spread out pretty nicely. And you want to get those swirls in there so it makes the color really pop in the end product. Like you can see right there, those swirls, they make it look a lot better than if you just let it sit and settle on its own. It'll look kind of stagnant. Now I'm just filling in the black letters. Which I make a mistake on this later on, which I'll point out and let you know what you can do to avoid the mistake that I made. Here I am about 4.5 hours later. I'm doing some more swirls in there because if you don't do this, it will settle and you won't be able to get those swirls in the final product. And there is my mistake. Now I let the blue run into the black, which you can fix by laying a small bead of either silicone or caulk, fast dry caulk, in between those, and it'll prevent them from bleeding into each other. I actually kind of like the way it ended up in the final product, as you'll see after I'm doing all this sanding, which sanding is the most tedious part of making these signs. I run from 80 grit, and then I move to 100, and then I go to 150, and then I finish it off with a 220 grit. Now I'm using Osmo 3043 on this sign, and it gives it a nice satin finish in the end and really makes the grains pop through. I just pour a little bit onto the wood, and I'll spread it out with this little squeegee first. And then I have a 3M white pad that I put onto my orbital sander, and it'll buff this finish right in really nicely and evenly. You'll see right now, I'll just give it a small pass with the orbital and it buffs right in. After this, I'll let the wood soak in the finish for about 10 to 15 minutes, and by that time it usually has absorbed all that it wants to, and I'll wipe the excess off with a clean microfiber towel. There you can see that the grains really pop out. And this is the final product. You can see the mistake that I made. You can see the blue mixed in with the dark gray, but I kind of like it. So I'm going to run with it and keep it like that. Well, that's all we got for today, and I hope you really enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more. I will be having more videos. I'm going to shoot for once every week and try and give some tips as I learn, because I'm a beginner woodworker and I want to show other beginners that it's not that difficult and you can make some pretty nice things for not much money, and it's very fun. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.